Okay, the first thing we have is Jay. Are you going to be in charge of this?
Morning, everyone. So we're just continuing the discussion we had prior month. We're back in January with the ICE fee discussion. Again, the list you have in front of you are the seven guideline principles. There was an additional one added, Counselor excuse addition with the seventh one that the village will maintain data for all vehicle categories. But I just wanted to briefly go over these seven again with any kind of concerns or inputs or potential changes or even again additional additions as well too. And the first one is that the fee schedule will be reviewed annually, and it's to be user-based fees increased to reflect the true cost of inflation in any given year. The second one is again any changes to the allocation of ICE fee schedules between daily and annual users, class of vehicles, and any other reason should not result in a reduction in revenue. Three, the ICE fee schedule should create a meaningful incentive to use smaller vehicles. Four, the ICE fee schedule should create a meaningful financial incentive for infrequent users to offer daily use for public infrastructure. Five, the ICE fee schedule will reflect a discounted rate for fully electric vehicles. And six, the ICE fee schedule may be expanded to create incentives to use narrower vehicles if possible. So as far as the next slide, I want to reiterate that a lot of these potential fees and costs are very preliminary at the draft stages. Again, will likely change between now and when we come back in April. But this is the table for electric commercial vehicle fees. And we've got it categorized in three categories. And off to the left, you'll see the sizing in each category. We have the daily fee, and then we have the annual fee. And again, this is an incentive for folks to use fully electric vehicles. And we didn't have any sizes beyond the top three categories because likely right now there's not going to be a vehicle that's going to be fully available in the other categories we've got that currently exist right now. It goes up to category 5. Questions initially from seeing these?
Yeah, so I just have a question. Is there a mechanism to charge electric vehicles, commercial electric vehicles on the island?
No, for these vehicles, these are typically up to golf carts, but standard size with up to 21 feet, you're looking at a standard small size or mid size 1500 size pickup truck. So if, as far as charging stations, this would be something that if they commercially had a charging station at their location of their business for their own vehicles where they park it kind of situation. But as far as any public infrastructure, we don't.
Okay, and then I had another point. Why are we? I thought the issue with ICE vehicles was the size, not the emissions. So it's not clear to me why. I mean, it's great that people would have electric vehicles. That's wonderful, but I thought that the size was what we were worried or concerned about, not necessarily the emissions itself, which would say,
I think it was both, Jesse. We had the ICE vehicle ordinance before. We had it in originally, or in this, I think predates probably all of us 8 or 10 years ago. It said that we would be fully electric by 2025. And when we were updating the ordinance, we said, well, clearly that's not here because we haven't put the infrastructure in, but we wanted to maintain that preference for electric vehicles that people had over the gas powered vehicles.
okay. I mean,
So that's been out there. It's been codified for a while. We haven't made the progress on it. I think we'd all agree on that we wanted for, but that's why that's in there.
okay. Yeah, I mean, all fine. And I'm not, I just, where I'm going with this, if we have a lot of expenses coming up on the island, I'd hate to think that we need to start planning for I don't know, I would hate. I mean, I just want to be careful that we're not forcing ourselves into having to set up some electric vehicle charging stations on the island as well. So
And just to
just
add-
be cognizant.
Yeah, the level 2 or level 3 chargers or fast chargers, I don't think it'd be economically viable out here for a long time. So the folks that are charging are doing it with, the drip, what they call the drip charge or whatever. And they can do that in a regular 240 outlet or 120.
And just to add, back in 2018, when we were working on that for over a year and a half with the Transportation Committee, I know I said back then that staff's recommendations and thoughts on that, trying to get to fully electric, was not feasible. There was no way that at one day that every contractor will be fully electric, and I would still say that today.
Yeah.
So,
I just wouldn't want, if we do this and, we go down the road, 5 years down the road, somebody comes up with a way to do the giant lumber truck and make it electric. That just because it's electric, we shouldn't be giving them any discount for that. They're still driving the same heavy truck, probably be heavier, that had batteries in it. I don't think it's going to happen,
Yeah.
but somebody could bring there's a Tesla truck over here.
Yeah.
Use that as their pickup and get a discount because it's electric. Well, it's still a huge truck. And I don't think that's the intent here. Is to
Yeah.
just say, hey, if you can replace this truck with a bigger electric truck, it's cheaper. We just need to not, that needs to not be the eventual outcome here. It's large vehicles that we care about, not electric vehicles or gas powered. We don't want, I'm fine with the incentive to have a gas powered vehicle over a large vehicle.
Same.
At some point, and I think this cutoff's great, get above 18 feet, it should be the same structure as all the other vehicles.
Yep.
There's no discount anymore for electric.
And that's why we stopped at category 3.
And that's
Right.
great.
Went beyond that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the true intent was to be, at least in my mind back then, was for the smaller IC trucks, that if they could transition to a golf cart or a small compact electric vehicle, that would be the incentive in that scenario.
Yeah.
Because
And that would address some of the narrowness issues too, right? Because a golf cart of those are they're narrower than the.
Get people to use golf carts when they can instead of using a pickup truck.
Right. And the category stop that also was kind of taken into consideration of towing capacity too, within electric vehicles.
Yeah, that seems right.
The next table is proposed when it comes to 6 categories, and we had to break down the differences between the current existing one. So Cat 3 is kind of an in between as far as capturing the ordinance change that we did in the fall. So again, we've got the list of the daily fees and the annual fees, and you see the incremental increases as it gets to be a larger vehicle. Again, these numbers can fluctuate between now when we come back in April, but questions?
Yeah, could you do me a favor, Jay, just pick out, say category 3. The annual fee is $2,500. What was it?
That, can you pull up from the current fees for this year? This table. Yes. I know there'll only be 5 categories, but I guess for comparison.
Chris, this might be a question for you while we're doing that. Well, I know that there are certain situations where there's big projects on the island. The club's golf course project's a great example where they're going to have, 500 truckloads of dirt come over here. Are we working with whoever those users are to try to make sure that it isn't so cost prohibitive that they can't do a project?
we met with Adam
Mhm.
and talked about IC permitting and doing like fleet
Yeah, okay,
passes.
all right, so that's, all right, so that's kind of, well, it may not be written in here, that's something we will allow if somebody does something
Yes.
like that, okay.
So only get 500.
That's gonna be a big that's gonna be very visible. There's gonna be people complaining there. Every time I go down to South Ball Head One, there's a giant truck coming off.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, and maybe Jay's gonna talk about it, I think some of the heavy equipment right now doesn't pay or doesn't do anything. And back to your point, if we're talking about, we're trying to recover, some of the damage done, right? Those are the things that really eat it up.
Right.
And I don't think we're, and I may be wrong, but I know he was looking into, I don't think those are paying anything, right? And so when you think about that, that cost share should be borne somewhat by those, things as well.
You mean like
Like a bulldozer, like
right,
those things, yeah.
the dumpsters back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those are in there at all right now. Or no, we're not collecting.
Yeah, I mean,
Jay had mentioned the last one that I think was your request was that we maintain that data. And I think you remember Josh told us right now, it's really hard to get that data. And I think we need to, before, and that's what I asked Jay to help work on before we get to April and really decide on these is, we'll violate 4 or 5 of the principles if we don't know where we're collecting the revenue right now, right? We got to start with what categories are we getting annual revenue from and how much does that accumulate to?
Right.
And then when we layer this on, how much more or less will there be, right? So that we, allocate that the right way.
yeah, I'll double check, but as a scenario example, Island Contracting has a lot of heavy machinery equipment on the island and dump trucks and so on. If it stays on the island, he has an annual permit right now. He does have a fleet pass for certain things like the roll-offs that take the containers, the dump containers off and on the island. So let's have fleet pass, he has that. But I think to your point, Scott, I want to double check for the scenario example, if you're coming over with a lowboy, a flatbed tractor trailer lowboy, you're paying an ICE permit for that. Don't believe if you got a bulldozer on it, that you're also paying a permit for the bulldozer because, well, the weight does have an impact on the road. I agree.
Yeah.
So I want to confirm that because if that's a decision that we need to consider with the weight and the intent of the ICE ordinance in protecting the roads or using that money to fund maintenance of the roads, then we need to consider that.
For sure.
Okay.
And additionally to, I know that I missed part of the conversation, but about heavy equipment and stuff like that. There'll be things that we're also working on with the fees attached to special use permits. And one of the 4 or 5 classes within the special use permit regulates or talks about heavy equipment type of materials.
Do we have anything today that, if you bring a 18-wheeler over for some reason that you have to follow a specific pre-approved travel plan on the island so that you decide to go a different way one afternoon, or you're like, I need to make 3 stops instead of 2, that you got to get that approved every time.
Yeah, we have a map that has the special routes for the largest of the classes.
Okay.
And they are supposed to get an approved plan, and public safety will escort them to make sure they get.
I'm thinking more of, well, maybe 18-wheelers not the right example because they're kind of limited.
It's not,
where they're going to go.
It's like the furniture delivery people that don't always come out here that don't know.
Right. I mean, what I'm thinking of, I don't know how many there are. There's some trucks that are here pretty much all the time that you see driving around wherever. And what I would like to think is that those at a certain size, we would be telling people that you have to have your route pre-approved. I don't care whether it's daily you get it approved. You can say, I'm going to drive from the contractor yard out to that construction site, and that's it. And if we find you driving over on South Ball Head One, we're going to pull you over and give you a ticket. Because I think that's maybe part of the problem is that, somebody gets in the truck, they're like, oh, I'm going to take my big van, my plumbing van that, is too big for the island. And I'm just going to start driving it because I need to go get lunch somewhere. I'm going to go park it here and go get lunch at the market, get back in, drive back to the next job site and then the next job site. To me, that would be a way to reduce the traffic of the big vehicles when they could be using a golf cart to do things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
It would be,
that's been
administrative.
I don't know how you,
Yeah, administratively, I
it
think.
seemed like an idea that we
Yeah.
could
That's been,
consider.
that's been brought up before.
Okay.
There's the practicality of it.
I mean,
Now, there are certain roads on the island that are restricted.
I know, yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
the Edward Teach wine is.
We could put an air tag on.
And one of the other special use permit for the classes also regulates or talks about going down special roads.
Restricted,
Yeah,
right.
but it has that as an
Yeah.
example. Peter, you had mentioned category 3.
Yeah.
So the proposed change was, again, the dimensions 18 to 21 feet. The current existing for category 3 is 21 to 27 feet for category 3. And the daily is 200 and the annual is 1,500.
Okay, so we didn't double, but that's a substantial change. 1,500 versus 2,500.
And then
May I
well,
interrupt for just, may I interrupt for just
Category 3
one
is not
second?
really category 4, kind
Um, Sorry to interrupt, but I'm not sure. I've heard that some of the builders on the island are turning away from island contracting and bringing in outsiders to do heavy equipment work, and dumpster removal work and other things. I don't know if you're aware of it at the village, but that should be factored in because we may see a lot of new big companies coming onto the island.
So Jenny, to that anecdotally, Jay and I and JP met with Island Contracting last week and talked about a number of things. One of those we recognize he and I think Norm Ingram have sort of taken on the dumpster box service. That Joe Hurd is, I think he's removed. I think he's moved on or retired. He's been doing it for so long, but I don't know that is that others are coming in to take over that specifically, other than island contracting.
I can tell you that I'm aware of some instances where the rates for the dumpster removal were so high that builders and others were saying, we'll get somebody else.
It's come July 1st with the ordinance amendment on the trailer sizes, that's going to remove those larger box trailers that have been used as quasi dump trailers, because still, even today, the contractors that are using them are not adhering to the ordinance, that they're maneuvering around the island instead of coming to the island to the job site and leaving it there. And then once it's full, taking it off. They're still going around and maneuvering around the island. So that's come July 1st. That's going to there's going to be some change there as well. But I think the dump boxes that Island Contracting and Ingram Services are using is going to be the way that it's probably going to be done moving forward.
All right. I just flag it so you can keep an eye out for it.
Okay. Because okay, thanks, Jenny.
any other questions with the fees?
So the class 3 was originally the class 3 has been broken into 2 categories basically.
Right.
Okay.
So for some of those, that there's a little bit more substantial increase. I think it's still not double.
And just one question, what kind of car would be 0 to 15 feet? Do we have a lot of those ICE vehicles that size on the island?
So those are typically transit, right, Stephen, the transit size vehicles. As an example that you might see on the island, would that be the HVAC company, Phillips Air Care? Was that size category, correct? Yeah, that's an example.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm reading this to say that we're skewing to say, hey, if you have a really small one, that's a lot better. The bigger ones we scale it up pretty fast. Is that the intent here generally?
Yes.
Thank you.
Because again, a lot of the concern in the past had been not only the length of the vehicles, but also the width, and typically those smaller transit vehicles are much narrower. So again, this is still a work in progress, still need to get some input and feedback from other stakeholders, but also our group that are working on this. Plan on meeting again a few more times before next month to pull more data as far as the quantity and number of revenues that we're generating between the categories to potentially adjust those fees with Councilor Thomas.
Just context, when did you guys start I mean, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah, 3 months. Maybe.
3 months? Okay, good. And the other thing is that I know when we started, there was a question about whether we should be waiting or not until the end of the year that we'd be doing an inventory of that, get a grip on how many different types of vehicles are actually on the island. And I assume that after we do that, there's a work in progress. We're going to be voting on this, but sometime in the fall or whatever, we'd be making a reassessment.
Yeah, I think we were saying, wasn't it July was the
Yes.
implementation of the other stuff?
Yes, we're going to try to get this so that this is implemented July 1.
So that
But-
they're synced up.
And again, this is a living document as far as the report
Right.
kind of situation. And then again, we want to see how it goes and start reviewing this as a regular annual basis.
Okay, great.
How about stakeholder feedback from now until, because for Zach and I doing the budget, did we talk about that back as far as well? We're looking to change the ICPs for projecting revenue budget. Is that feasible?
Timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to find. Second week of April, because that's when we're putting that preliminary presentation together.
Okay.
I think the last time too, though, we said if we follow these principles and it's at least revenue neutral, there's no harm in you guys doing your budget exercise. All it'll be is a happy number, right? We put in a fee structure that gives more revenue than what you would have done before. So I don't think it has to be absolute precision for budgeting purposes, provided we stick with our guiding principles there. The bigger thing is just getting our arms around the data right now as far as what we're collecting and from what class, because that's been difficult, to get our hands around.
And Chris, the estimates that we've been working on, I mean, Scott has some calculations that are pretty darn good. I mean, they're estimates look like they'll work, so I don't see any trouble with timeline, but
Okay, good.
not to sell us,
Just want to, just want to make sure. Okay.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks.
We're ahead of schedule, man.
Good.
So if we want to change one of these fees, like, to next June, when we get the data and we look at this and we want to change it, we have to go through the whole process to change the ordinance, right?
It would be an ordinance amendment.
Right. And so we got to have a, public hearing, we got to get comment, we got to,
You don't have to
okay,
on this type of ordinance.
Okay.
Zoning and some do.
okay, all right.
Traditionally, we have just to give people an opportunity to learn about it, comment and
Yeah.
so forth.
Because I know we're talking about inflation adjustments and stuff. I just want to make sure we don't have to go through 3 meetings of talking about it. That we just sit down and say, look, we're going to make the inflation adjustment and we make it.
If 4 out of 5 voted for it and were present, you could do it at a meeting.
Okay, all right, that's great. All right.
Good.